Good evening, creepypasta lovers of the interwebs. I'm Alexa, resident ooky spooky girly, and today we're diving into, the land of creepypastas, which is so exciting to me. I've always loved the really good Disney Parks ones, such as Mowgli's Palace. If you know, you know. So question for you, what's your favorite one to read? Let me know in the comments, and welcome to the top 5 2023 creepypastas you will regret reading at 3 a.m. Number 5, the Stalker Program. In this chilling tale, the 10th of November marked not only the onset of winter, but an unwitting entry into a dystopian reality. Our narrator arrived home from a picture-perfect honeymoon with her husband in Hawaii when she noticed a weird envelope in the mailbox. Heck, it was so cutesy of a honeymoon that the duo had actually gotten matching tattoos to commemorate the occasion. But yes, back to the letter that wasn't junk mail or a prank, but instead an official invite. While her husband opened the letter, he joked about her getting into unknown trouble, and she was standing on her toes behind him, reading over his shoulder. "Congratulations!" in large letters, and then "You have been selected to take part in our exclusive program," and that's where our gal originally stopped reading, thinking it was a scam or some other kind of nonsense. She told her husband to throw the junk in the trash, but his stare was still stuck on the paper, transfixed, which left her with a weird feeling. "No," he mumbled, as his eyes traced over the lines. "Like it's official." He pointed at the stamp, which was a faint blue seal that seemed kind of familiar, and this was printed on hard, thick paper that gave it some sort of perceived integrity. At this point, our gal was getting impatient, simply grabbing the letter from his hands and skimming over it. "Surveillance program. Only few select citizens to participate. Please assemble at town hall." How odd. It slipped from her, but she couldn't find anything dubious about the contents. So this government-sanctioned surveillance program, shrouded in secrecy, it's about to disrupt this seemingly idyllic life. The husband was determined to go, and the wife went along with it at first, but then things took a turn for the worst. The husband's intrigue thrusted them into an eerie experiment involving detached heads, artificial brains, and a relentless pursuit of control. The wife's journey from concern to horror is palpable, culminating in her transformation into a mechanized entity, forever bound to observe another unsuspecting soul. Look, I'd go more into detail, but if I talk about the specifics on here, the interwebs aren't gonna like it and this video is gonna disappear. So read this one at your own risk. Number 4, the beginner's guide to contacting a cryptid. So now that we're delving into the mysterious realm of cryptids and creepypastas, we find ourselves on the trail of the mysterious Coal Creek Demon, courtesy of author Bucket. Legend has it that this creature, with its animal skull visage, prowls the Seattle wilderness, evading cameras and thriving on a diet of deer and wild berries. But if you dare to seek a rendezvous, here's your guide. Begin with a carefully prepared gift, a token, or better yet, a feast of red meat and berries. Venture deep into the woods near Coal Creek, armed with camping gear, flashlights, blindfolds, and a remote activated light source. So while you're setting up camp, banish recording devices and limit light sources to create a welcoming yet protected environment. As night falls, observe the signs, a distant shadow, rustling foliage, or an eerie silence. If the creature graces you with its presence, stay calm, extinguish lights, and make no sudden moves. The demon may approach your gift, casting a brief gaze upon your camp before retreating. For the daring, take it a step further. Eliminate all light, don blindfolds, and let the creature explore your camp. Remain still and under no circumstances remove the blindfold. It's a precarious dance, with potential risks, Occasional tales suggest the demon may have a taste for human flesh, especially if provoked. Hey, if that isn't scary enough, back in 2004, a young boy named Brian Matthews found himself in a bad situation, and I'm not just talking about him having 2 first names. He was out on a hike with his parents when suddenly they turned around and, he's gone. I don't know what they were doing having him at the back of the line, but that's not the point here. Obviously, they immediately panicked, ran around looking for him, yelling. When that didn't work, they went to the police. Within a few hours, park rangers were sweeping the area, and after 2 days with no results, they brought in the National Guard. While they were out searching on day 3, the young boy turns up, but not with the cops. Instead, a group of backpackers found him sitting on a tree stump, 20 miles north from where he went missing. When they brought him in, he was healthy and well fed, and when asked where he'd been, he just said that he was playing with a friendly bear he'd met. When shown an artist's sketch of the Coal Creek Demon, he immediately identified it as the creature he was talking about. Articles quote him as saying, "Did you meet him too when you first saw the sketch?" In my opinion, this is a pretty big boon for the ex-human theory, unless there's some species of wild animal that just so happens to have a habit of caring for young humans like a parent would. Not something I would do. So those who are brave enough to pursue a cryptid, armed with gifts and blindfolds, remember the risks. The Coal Creek Demon, a creature lurking in the shadows, may offer an encounter that lingers as a tale of both wonder and, warning. Number 3, Earthly Invasion. Imagine a scenario where a simple picnic triggers a global catastrophe. The seemingly innocent discovery of worms exhibiting bizarre behavior spirals into a nightmare of parasitic invasions. These extraterrestrial parasites, originating from a distant galaxy, infiltrate Earth through a meteorite, evoking biblical plagues. So our narrator's family was always extremely cautious when it came to diseases and parasites. Bad luck seemed to follow them in that aspect, and parasites caused them great disgust. Not to mention repulsion. It's ironic considering all of them pursued careers in medicine and biology, fields they found fascinating despite their macabre nature, exploring the insides of bodies, studying and researching diseases, and even on occasion conducting analyses with them. Our narrator remembers how their parents were extremely overprotective in this regard. For them, an illness was the apocalypse, and they felt they hadn't cared for our narrator enough. Fortunately, they never had any problems with their own body, although the rest of the world was not so lucky. Their family had a complicated relationship with bacteria and viruses, especially the parents. Our narrator wasn't as, meticulous. And on this fateful day, even after hurting themselves, they continued without disinfecting the wound, contrary to what they had been taught. Later, it almost became infected, proving that perhaps the parents were right. So at that time in the news, there was talk of a new space mission to Mars after the discovery of alleged organic matter and signs of water on the planet. People on television expressed their fear and called for extreme precautions in the analysis of organisms, and her parents strongly shared this opinion. While they debated the issue though, arguing that an analysis on a first mission could be dangerous, our narrator noticed something strange outside the window. A worm. There was a fallen apple from a tree, and the worm had crawled into it through a hole. Suddenly, multiple tiny limbs emerged from the apple as if it were a mutation, and it quickly moved towards what seemed to be a colony of worms. They watched a while longer until they got bored and decided to take their pet for a walk. This is our narrator, by the way, not the worm. I don't think the worm had a pet. That scene stayed in their mind for a while, and at one point they got so distracted that they didn't even notice the streets as they walked, which almost resulted in a traffic accident. So when they got home, they found the colony and spent a long time observing it. Somehow these worms showed behavior similar to ants. They were highly organized with specific units dedicated to bringing food, while others expanded the territory. They focused particularly on the worms carrying food. One of them had a bird, and they were so amazed by the strength they showed despite being so small. Now our narrator looked down for a moment, feeling a sting in their leg, and there they were. Worms were trying to pierce the skin. Our narrator quickly brushed them off and ran home, screaming the entire way, as you do. What concerned our narrator the most, though, was that the wound on their leg was very deep and was made in such a quick and clean way that they were surprised they didn't faint from the pain. And they called out to their parents, who were shocked to see the wound and asked how, they'd gotten it. It was then that they told them about the worms behind the house, and our narrator took them directly to the colony, where their mother let out a scream that almost woke up the entire neighborhood. The father didn't hesitate to bring a small flamethrower and incinerated the entire worm colony. Now, some time passed while their mother documented these events in her insect book. She was surprised, that these sorts of worms really shouldn't have been there. She also noticed a variation in their color, something not seen in common worms. Despite the revolting situation, the parents decided that this was a worthy subject for study, so they found one of the few remaining worms in the surrounding area after the incineration and took care of analyzing it in their laboratory. So what happens next? Well, the infected folks, rejuvenated by the parasites, unknowingly became carriers, perpetuating the gruesome cycle. After that, the governments grapple with secrecy and misinformation, resistant groups emerge in a desperate attempt to survive, the parasites evolve, rendering traditional defenses useless, and as humanity faces extinction, a chilling revelation emerges, a trap if you will, set by an unknown entity. The story unfolds like a surreal nightmare, blurring the lines between science fiction and apocalyptic horror. So if that's your cup of tea, have at her. Number 2, everyone wants to be a Barbie. Stacy desired beauty more than anything in life. She grew tired of playing the role of a background set piece in somebody else's story. The men at her job paid her no mind, the woman often mocked her plain Jane appearance. Life was not kind to people like her, people who were destined to be loveless. Every day she scorned her bloated body, crooked nose, and heavy eye bags. Why couldn't she be like the girls who pranced around on social media? They always danced on screen, wearing the latest trends, while a legion of fans cheered them on in the comments. A lifestyle like that was a dream as distant as the farthest stars. It was one fateful morning though, when she took the first step towards turning her dreams into reality. Dr. Faust was his name. He stopped Stacy during a morning jog and presented her with an opportunity she couldn't turn down, and his business card, which claimed that he ran a modeling agency. Stacy was stunned. No one, let alone a handsome older man like Dr. F, had ever complimented her appearance. So he asked her to hop in his car, and she did, and allowed him to drive her to his business. The exterior of the building was a modest abode in plain gray colors and looked borderline decrepit, and all the signals in her brain were telling Stacy to run away, but she dreaded possibly losing her only chance at stardom. Inside, the building hardly looked any better than the outside. By the time it dawned on her that leaving effective immediately would be in her best interest, a large metal door slammed shut behind her. Dr. F flicked on the lights to reveal a scene straight from hell itself. Several mannequins were lined against the walls in uniform fashion. Each one of them had bulbous bodies caked in heavy layers of dirt and dried waste. But most striking of all were their hollow expressions. Stacy frantically rushed to the door, grabbing desperately at the knob that refused to turn. Her vain attempt to flee was met with guttural laughter from her captor. According to him, there is nothing more desirable in my line of work than a woman in complete tranquility. Stacy could only scream in pure agony as a syringe got jammed into her arm, making her body go limp. Poor thing. Number 1. Harlan Sweet Pies. A cantankerous older man named Harlan was visited by a group of teens on Halloween night, and when he told them to get lost, the boys plotted their revenge. Their leader, Tanner, revealed his devious idea to his cohorts, who were more than enthusiastic about it. The goal? The whole lot of Harlan's homemade mini pies. The only non-mass-produced treat that wasn't thrown away by parents at the end of the night, and for good reason. The parents wanted a bite. Won't he know it was us though? Fat Matt piped up. He certainly saw through everybody's costumes. Well, Tanner said, I guess that just means we'll have to ensure he doesn't see us. That means you're out. Tanner peeled the dollar store skeleton mask from Matt's face, donning it as he and his slender cronies hopped a fence into Harlan's neighbor's backyard. About 20 minutes went by before Matt began to feel concerned. He was patient, as was evident by his trying friend group, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Within the next 10 or so minutes, it had dawned on him. They probably succeeded and left him behind. Not so much as a text, nor a response to any that he sent. Another 5 minutes later, Matt was on his way to Tanner's house and he wasn't home. Then he checked the other fellas' houses too, not trusting them to answer their phones, and nothing. Nobody was home. Eventually, Matt found himself back at the scene of the crime. Old man Harlan's house was the only one with lights still on. He couldn't tell how long he'd been wandering, but suddenly a warm yellow light bathed him in its glow. The door was open and the silhouette of Mr. Harlan stood squarely in the frame. A little late for trick-or-treating, isn't it, son? Yeah, I guess so. I lost my friends, he replied. He was invited inside to help bake pies and was eager to get his hands on said pies, so he went. Time seemed to fly by, and before he knew it, Matt had a freshly baked pie in front of him. Before his words had finished leaving his mouth, though, and he quickly inhaled it. Deliciously smooth, creamy, and sweet. Now that Matt thought about it, he could see how the filling was meat all along, although it was certainly well masked by the other ingredients. Because there was some doubt. And for how delicious it was, there was something a little off about the pie. It was a little too dry. And he spoke up. He was like, "Delicious, sir, but there's something a bit..." But then something caught Matt's eye, sending a chill down his spine and halting his appetite. A familiar skeleton mask peeked up at him from a bin near the back door, with some red splattered on it. He caught the old man's eye, and the old man winked at him. Our little secret. When that brings us to the end of our time, and I'm gonna take forever to fall asleep tonight. I just know it. If you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hit the bell for more creepypasta content from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.